Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Josh, awesome to see you, man.
Oh, likewise, man. It's great to be able to do this again. I know it's been a little bit of time, but I'm so glad we're able to catch up here and talk about the new album.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been like it has to have been like 5 years, right? Since we've actually been on like a meet together or a call or whatever. 2018,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, I think it has to be something like that. I know we tried for the EP, and unfortunately that didn't work out. But I definitely wanted to make sure this was going to happen this time. And I've, of course, there's been some delay on my end, but I'm so thankful we're able to do this here and talk about probably one of the best albums of 2023.
Too kind, man. Thanks.
Oh, awesome. Well, of course, alluding to all of that, I've had the chance to be able to check out this album for quite a bit of time, and I've been really able to dissect this album and just seeing the vast improvement of the band over the years. Just everything from the songwriting to the production to just it feels like the band is even stronger than ever before. And it's just great to see that all the time because, obviously there's so many peaks and valleys that happen with being in a band, but at least it feels like right now that the band is at a great high right now.
Yeah, thanks for saying so. I think it's interesting because the band that we are now in the present with the current lineup is not the exact lineup that recorded without intervention, but the core unit that kind of made it through the shifting years from the debut's release through that EP, and then there was some changeover from that EP to through the getting without intervention to the finish line. But that core unit, I guess, trio of myself, Brandon, and Mike. Um, I think that stamp, identity stamp, is like on that record. But we're just it's interesting because we're putting it out now, but we're actually a different lineup. We're a different band, but we're carrying the DNA from without intervention to the next thing. So you know
Yeah,
how it is with like setting stuff up for having long production cycles, trying to anticipate when something will come out, and you've kind of made that statement in the past, but now it's like time to get it out to the public, and your head is already on the next thing creatively. It's interesting.
oh, for sure. And, I can speak from that from experience, like from bands breaking up right before we get into the studio to right after we're done in the studio to, just the lineup changes, everything that happens. It's just there's so much that can happen. But, I'm glad to see, like this new statement that's going on with the band. Well, at least new to us and everyone that's going to
Mhm.
be able to check this out. But the following chapter, I'm very curious to see what that's going to be about. I mean, especially with the new lineup and being able to do some shows, having some stuff lined up. I mean, it's constantly great to see that evolution of the band, and I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Thanks. Yeah, we're just lucky that people are still interested in working with us, like some new blood coming into the band. That's we've been very fortunate to find another guitar player, Sayer Whitford. He's almost like if you took Brandon and I and kind of made just another guitarist out of like our DNA. I mean, honestly, he has his own bag too. I mean, he studied the Musicians Institute. Uh, you know, knows probably a lot more than we do theoretically about guitar, but having someone with that kind of knowledge working with a bunch of idea guys who just kind of like to play around and feel it out is a really good combination for creativity and also kind of like staying grounded in a way.
Oh, for sure. And according to the press release, I didn't realize this that you got the vocalist of Def Leppard playing bass now, Joe Elliott.
Yeah, it's funny you caught that. So he's our original bassist. So he came back after, he was on Living with the Law CP from Worry to Shame, and he stepped away for a number of years, like over like four and change, and now he's back. He's been playing shows with us for like the past year. However, he's not on Without Intervention. That's a fella named Connor Oyster.
Yeah, and again, it's amazing what can happen because it's at least from my experience. I mean, there's usually so much of like the lineup changes and you never see someone come back. But in your case, I'm glad to see Blood coming back into the band. I mean, the band is changing, and to me, it's constantly getting better and better. But when you can bring someone back and be able to continue on with that life's blood that's going on, I mean, it's such a great feeling.
Yeah, it's nice to know that there wasn't lasting, like a lasting grudge or bad blood over the years. I wish when Joe had left originally, I wish we had stayed in closer touch for a number of years, but there just came an opportunity to kind of reconnect before music was even on the table again. So that was a real I don't want to say blessing, but yeah, just being him being willing to come back in the fold and almost like wanting it, like unknowingly, and then it just coming up when it did. It was a bit fortuitous, I think.
Yeah, and again, you can never really predict things like that happening as well. And sometimes you need to go through some of those moments like that where, you could have like wishing things were different, sometimes regret that comes along with that, but sometimes it does come back around and it works for the best. And I'm so glad this is one of those situations.
Thanks. Maybe I should use this as an opportunity to actually just get it out there. We never formally announced the departure of our uh, past bass player, Steve Hill. So he's not with the band anymore. Um, just never really got it out there. Never really had an opportunity to say so. But yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, those situations again, it's like it can be very unfortunate, but I am glad to see Joe back in the band. I'm glad to see this full lineup going on. And of course, some outside influence outside of the band as well. When you got one of the hardest working musicians in the world, Vikram Shankar, being able to do as much as he did with this record and really just being able to add some more character to the album that I could ever imagine.
yeah, that's years in the making. Just so lucky to have gotten in touch with him probably around the same time that I met you. Just either somewhere between 2017 into 2018, and just kind of had caught wind of what he was doing, kind of in the underground Facebook prog scene or prog world, just with all of his covers that he was putting out in those early years of. I mean, maybe he started sooner before I caught on to him, but just seeing those videos, and where my head was in the space of like trying to figure out how to like market Head with Wings online for the first time, and I was following everything, progressive rock, or prog leaning prog metal world. So my Facebook algorithm would be entirely, indoctrinated into that world, and he would be popping up like all the time. And just like everyone else that I've kind of reached out to that hasn't been a referral, just kind of took a shot in the dark years ago, reached out to him. He did those covers and a medley for our debut, did remixes of the tracks on our last EP from 2021. And then it only made sense to try to up the ante and just give him an opportunity to just write on a full record. But not only that, but then go one step further and mix it and then master it too. I mean, just having someone that can just tackle all of that, and then they're going to take it to the finish line, and you can just totally trust pretty much everything they're going to do. Like, granted, it was collaborative, so there were like revisions and such, and he was super cool about taking notes and then running with it, and then any note he would take uh regarding something creative, the next thing he would send in would just like blow it out of the water. I mean, I could just go on and on about how awesome it is to work with him, and just to be able to talk about all the cool shit he's always doing. um yeah, just wow.
Yeah, and of course I was gonna love this album. I mean, I've been waiting for this just like everyone else has been waiting for this, but knowing he was able to put his stamp of approval production wise and into songwriting as well too, and the fact that you're able to collaborate the way that you were able to, and he was able to take your notes and yeah, it's just like every single note that he does on this album feels like it's meant to be there, which is so great to hear
Mm.
because of what he's capable of. And then, of course, with all of you being able to work with him and be able to work on the best songs possible. And, obviously a bit of a wait in time, obviously, like you kind of mentioned before, like you're already thinking about the next era of the band. But, for the rest of us, it's so great to hear what has been going on over the last 5 years or so and just seeing what has been going on in that time.
And I should emphasize, like, even though we're working on the new era, we do look at our records almost like if we were just as passionate about putting out a movie, right? Like, you want that movie to stand the test of time in your filmography, in our case, the discography. So even though we're creatively shifting into a new place, uh, this record is very present. It's very pertinent and relevant to like what's going on. I guess it's kind of like a zeitgeist record in a way where it's like, yeah, we tried to write it in a vacuum and we had our own like personal initiatives, but it's very much capturing what I've seen and what I've experienced and observed in society and culture in and around my interests. Uh, evolving from the headspace of from the themes of From Worry to Shame and carrying all of that forward in a narrative way and a thematic way. It's a very important record to me, and I think for the time that we're releasing it. So even though it took a few years, three some odd years to get it all done. I think we started writing it sometime in early 2020 as we were finishing the production post production of the last EP. So that's all to say, totally proud of it, totally relevant, and really happy to champion it for years to come. Honestly,
Oh, of course. And kind of like he hinted at, and it is such a huge focal point of the album, it really does feel like a zeitgeist kind of album because, like, it's so poignant for what's going on in the world right now. Whether, it's just like it became more intentional over time or the world just became more like the album, whatever the case is, it feels like it hits so hard in 2023 thematically.
yeah, and maybe it's just the through line of that there's this female protagonist that kind of carries over the like as a through line from the end of From Worry to Shame, and this character goes on to uh, become an influencer, streamer, like variety streamer, gamer, jack of all trades on the internet, but is kind of doing it in a way where she's manipulated by this agent who also, at least in the context of the album, so there's like the album story version, and then there's like the adaptation that you'll see in like the Galaxy music video. So like speaking to the album narrative, she is a streamer who has this dark past. She's kind of like a victim that is then made into like a hero in the media. So there's like these themes of manipulation of like what is fact or fiction in the media, manipulation of truth, in the news. Um, there's a lot of these technological aspects like streaming and the parasocial relationships that kind of develop around fandom and obsession over like influencers and just pretty much anyone on the internet. I've had experiences throughout the pandemic that uh, led to me wanting to kind of channel some of that into my lyrics and storytelling. So there's a lot of that in it as well. There's like callbacks to songs that actually jump back, like the song Comfort and Illusion on like the middle track of the new record is named after the last EP because it's the like the finale of the EP essentially, just on the next record. So it functions as kind of like a prequel sequel where four of the tracks are taking Galaxy's story forward and seeing, where she winds up. And then we're going back in time and getting some background to the catalyst incident of the debut, which was a school shooting, and what may have led to that occurring. We tried to tackle some of that subject matter, which was not easy. And still to this day, I don't even know how that will land. I hope it, I got what I wanted to out of it, putting into that song 3 months, for example, on the record. So there's songs that are going forwards and backwards and in between, and then even some that jump to like a certain time, a point in time of a song from one of the last two releases. And I don't know if necessarily people will pick up on it right away, but the connective tissue like is there. Not necessarily in terms of like melodies. I'm not like pulling like melodic content from prior records and then inserting it in this one. You'll get callbacks to musical themes on this one, from this one on this one, but I'm doing a lot of like thematic pulling in connection. Sorry, that was probably very long-winded, but
Oh, not at all. And that helps me understand it a little bit more because the more that I listen to the album, the more that I am starting to pick up on some of those things. But that contextualized a lot of what I was thinking, and
cool.
it's cool to see those callbacks on there. And it's all the more reason to check out the entire discography. And I know for some people this will be the first album they'll be checking out from you guys, and it's all the more encouraging to go back and check out the previous material. And just being able to listen to it as a whole, and you can hear those things. I mean, it's so cool to be able to have those representations, those thematic moments, even if you obviously cover some very dark subject matter. It's great to see it continue on and still make it prevalent to everything that's going on.
Right. Yeah. That's it's interesting. When we started, putting out records in 2012, we knew we wanted to do concept records, but we never knew that the whole body of work from that point forward would actually be connected. It kind of just happened in the development of each release. It was like, oh, okay, this actually is informed by this in a way. And like musically speaking, even though the parts weren't calling back, it all still kind of felt like this like gradual evolution, musical evolution, which then led to that gradual thematic evolution. And we've gone back and forth as to whether or not Without Intervention is it's kind of a cliffhanger in a way, depending on how you look at it. It kind of does beg for more like story content, but we're not tethering ourselves to having to tell that next chapter on the next release that we're working on now, especially since we have Sayer, a new guitarist with us. Joe's back in the fold. It'll be the second record that Mike is drumming on. He played guitar on the Comfort EP. So, there's still an open book in terms of what's going to happen with the keys and the sound design on the next record. So because that's such an open book, we just don't want to corner ourselves yet and say, okay, we're going to directly write the sequel to Without Intervention now. So that's all to say, like, we're really happy where this one's leaving off at, and we're definitely going to get back to it at some point. And we actually have a point in the record specifically that we will jump off from. So how I mentioned like one song on one record will harken back to a story bit from a prior track on whatever record. There's actually like a point in time on Without Intervention that is like another divergence point in the story that we will ultimately return back to that exact point.
Yeah, and to me, it makes it all the more fun to listen to the previous albums and the upcoming releases, whatever will happen in the future, because of those reasons. Because it's like you said, it's not just one story that's going on. There's so many different pivot points that you can go to, and the fact that you are thinking of those ideas, hinting back to other parts in time, but just doing what feels creatively right at the time is the way to go. And the fact that you've left yourself so much leeway to be able to do such a thing is a cool thing to see.
Yeah, the world building aspect has become more than I ever could have imagined back when we said our first EP is going to be a concept EP. So I'm really happy with what we've been able to accomplish in that regard. And it had been just me kind of mapping out all the stories and the through lines and the general plot, which for a time was relatively straightforward. But now, after having worked on writing the Galaxy music video, I'm, much more inclined and interested even in getting like Brandon's opinion, let's say, or Joe's opinion, Mike's opinion, Sayer's opinion on where our world is heading, like where the story is heading, because there comes a point where it's like things just become so might be so interesting to you, but they're I've learned along this process that they hit differently for others. And like Brandon had a totally different interpretation of, let's say, the Dream Broker on the album, who on the album, in my vision of the album, functions as the Galaxy's manager. So husband in the story context of the album, in the context of the music video, just a talent agent who runs the Dream Broker group. who signs her to his agency after she gets 1 million subscribers, right? So there's this notion of like in Brandon's mind, the Dream Broker was actually this like more like mythological like being that was probably closer to like the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman. Have you seen that, like the Netflix version of that?
Oh yeah. A huge fan of the comics. Love the show.
Same. So there was like this notion that in Brandon's version of the story, the Dream Broker actually would have been a bit more like fantastical and maybe like Dream. Not so much in my vision, which was more grounded in reality and inspired by true events and you know just real in a way. And but I love that. And Brandon's not really like a fantastical person in a way. He's not like he doesn't like love fantasy, but for some reason that's how he imagined it. And I never really looked at like Head with Wings has a bit of surrealism and an abstract nature at points, particularly on like story wise and Beyond the Wall, that song, right? That's like a surreal type of uh narratively oriented song, or the content from the last EP, the Comfort EP, like that. In story wise, we're in the protagonist Paul's mind. Like we're just seeing delusion. We're experiencing his delusion, right? In through his eyes. So there are moments like that throughout the work. It's just not like the defining characteristic in my mind of like you all of our imagery, right? It's not like, castles and dragons and stuff like that. But I love that shit. And I actually wanted to do during the pandemic. I was working with a band, Drifting Sun, who you've I believe you reviewed them and listened to them before to some
Oh
degree.
yeah. Mhm.
UK band, and I was working on another record with them that didn't work out. I got let go from that project, um, but that record was all of that with the big fantasy narrative, swords and sorcery, like all those bells and whistles. And I like desperately do want to do a record like that, but there really hasn't been a place for it in Head with Wings thus far, outside of just like some surrealism or abstract moments.
Oh yeah, and there's always going to be time, hopefully, to be able to do something like that. Be it in Head with Wings, be it outside of that in a different project. I could totally see that happening. But I do love the fact that the thematics and the lyrical interpretations can be so varied from band member to band member as well, and it can hit people so differently. And I think that's a sign of great art when people are able to take different meanings, even if it's not the original intent. They're able to look at things in a different light.
Yeah, and I was really married to the idea that I would be trying to shove this particular album story down people's throats. Especially when I was recording the vocals with Frank Sacramone, he would kind of ask me throughout the sessions, like, "Oh yeah, it'd be really good if you found a way to make sure that people know like what the hell you're talking about here or here or here and here and here and here because there's so many lyrics on the record." But really after having so much time to just sit with it after its completion and going through this whole cycle of some of our visual projects falling through, where I was trying to guide our illustrator down a path where I'm forcing their hand in terms of trying to tell this visual collage my way. you know Here's this character here, they have to see this character, they're not going to know this character unless they're right here on the album cover, or just plugging things like it's almost like a film, like a movie poster. You know how movie posters are always advertised, right? It's just like, here are all the characters you need to know, or like a game cover, like a Grand Theft Auto cover. I went through this phase where I felt like Without Intervention needed that. Like it was going to need it, just hand holding. But then there was this very unique experience where we had an extra 7 months to kind of sit on the record and figure out what the future of it would be. And during that time, I just kind of realized, with the help of some of the other band members, that just like maybe it's just let's just let the music speak. we'll talk about the fact that it's a concept record, but we don't have to like just shove it all down people's throats, because just like for reasons you're saying, like there's many ways to connect with it. And it's there are moments where the lyrics are from the perspective of characters. There's actually, in my mind, there's almost the entirety of it is every lyric is, whether the audience is going to know it or not, is from the perspective of one of the main characters in the saga. So I struggled with having that baggage for a long time, and then thought maybe this would become like an Arion or is Arian Lucassen. Am I saying his name right? Like,
Oh, I've heard it so many different ways, but yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
sorry out there if I'm messing that up, but yeah, I really love that music too, and the way they handle that project, I thought maybe Head with Wings was becoming something like that, where it's just like I bring on different singers even to like take on different roles. I went through that phase where when I was working on the story, where I thought I was even considering, I had reached out to Diana from the band Trope. If you heard of Trope,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and there was a point where I was going to consider trying to get her to come on and do parts on the album that might have been more through the perspective of the female protagonist Galaxy. And ultimately I just decided it was just maybe at the time too much of an undertaking for me to deconstruct the record from just a traditional Head with Wings approach to going down that path. I guess I just wasn't really ready for that, the gravity of what that meant, and just decided to just sing the whole thing myself, which I'm glad I went down that road instead. Obviously, as the lead singer of the band, it makes sense, but just being able to have my exert my control over every little part. I guess I wasn't really ready to let go of that control too, or I was maybe worried where our identity would go if I was just assigning too much else out.
Then also when you do live shows as well too. I mean, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to sing as much as possible on the songs, not having to rely so much on recorded background vocals or whatever the case would be.
Yeah, we entertained some crazy shit over the years. We really have, even from day one. Frank and Jamie from Earthside, they were there at the the beginning of Head with Wings was like 2008 or 9, but the true beginning of us taking it seriously was like 2010, 2011, and that's when the Earthside guys got involved. And I feel like they really helped keep us. This is for better or worse. I mean, you tell me, but we had ideas like, okay, we were thinking, okay, stage show, like let's have like the first EP was called Living with a Loss. The EP cover is super grim, it's super ugly, it's like macabre, totally not what we're really doing these days. Like the macabre is in the music now, it's not like on the cover necessarily. But we were back then, we were just like obsessed with graphic novels and wanting to do hire illustrators to do a Head with Wings graphic novel. So we had all these lofty ambitions, but we didn't know how to tackle any of it. Didn't have the money for any of it. Still barely have the money for that stuff. But stage show, we're like, let's have a casket on stage and have somebody like, you know, getting in or out of it, or trying to break out of it throughout, I don't know, maybe like some Alice Cooper shit. So that's where our heads were at. But Frank and Jamie at the time, we were just like, no, don't do that. Just like don't worry about your music. Like you're obsessing about all these things that you don't even understand like what your music is about yet, really. Like you're still just trying to like figure out your vibe and your mood and just what you have to offer as an artist. And then unfortunately we didn't really find ourselves getting back to the place where we're like having this sort of fabricated stage show, not really where we went as a band. Not to say if we had a budget down the line that we wouldn't go that route. I mean, I think there's a lot of ripe imagery to pull from in our work. So anyway, what do you make of that? Like having producers kind of step in and then just almost like kind of just being like, no, we're like, that's cool and all, but worry about this, worry about that later, or maybe not at all.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it depends on like how often you're going to be playing shows. Are they just going to be special one-off shows, or are you going to be doing full-on touring? Are you going to have the budget for it? There's so many things that go along with that. And I think
Mhm.
right now, especially at the point, like with two full LPs and EPs going on, I think you could start throwing in some more of the theatrics for the show because it'll be more of a reason to be able to check
Mhm.
everything out. It'll make people memorize the songs a little bit more and make it a little more memorable that way. But as long as it feels authentic to you and you're making what you want to make for the live show without making any compromise to being able to play on stage, I think it's limitless on what you could do.
Right. I think I'm just a little bit hyped after seeing Alice Cooper like 2 weeks ago. it
Oh
was it
yeah,
was
that totally
awesome.
helps.
It really
Although,
was.
yeah. And I was just going to say, like getting into the video, which I do want to get into. I think if nothing else, you need a giant subscribe button above the stage to click to subscribe.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely on the nose in that. You're referring to that little beat in the video, right?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of the
yeah.
best parts of the video.
Yeah, where we break the fourth wall. Yeah, that at even from the very conception of trying to write that video, we knew that there was going to be that beat where it's just like it just made too much sense. Uh but yeah, I mean what did you think? I'm curious. What did you, after like a one watch takeaway, did it did you get enough of like what it was going for out of it?
Oh yeah, and I have watched it a few times, so I guess there's a little bit more that goes into that as well. But it's just like at one time it can feel really dark. At another time it feels like you're kind of like breaking through. Another time you see it like from the third party, kind of like that obsession kind of thing going on. It's just like there's so many different ways that you're able to tackle that just from the one song in and of itself, without even hearing the rest of the album. Like it makes you very curious. Like how did this all come together? Like who's this guy? What's the deal going on with the Dream Broker and Galaxy? Like there's so
Awesome.
many things that leaves you wanting more. And that's what a great video should do, especially when there's such great conceptual and thematic moments going on. It leaves you wanting more.
That is awesome to hear because this obviously we've done videos before. We've done videos we're proud of, some that we thought might have fallen short. We spent a lot of time doing all the animated work with Igor Dovgateles. Uh, haven't worked with him in a few years. He's off making video games now, so he doesn't really have time to do like he's working on Stalker 2.
Oh wow.
Um, so yeah, he's like the lead cinematic designer, I believe, on that game.
That
Another
seems to kind of be a theme with Head with Wings because Vikram's doing everything that he does with Silent Sky Productions. It's like it seemed to be working with a lot of people that are part of the game industry in some way, shape, or form.
yeah, I maybe it's I'd like to attribute it to the fact that maybe our collaborators are attracted to the fact that we are into world building and songs aren't just songs with like one note, like a one note theme to it. It's they go for more, they go deeper, they try to tie in and around and everything in between. And I think that just speaks to people that are trying, like someone like Vikram. He's creating worlds for his in his own music and for video game worlds. Same thing with Igor. He's in there every day creating virtual worlds. Another Dima Motus, who also worked with Igor on those animated videos for us. He went on to now work for Ubisoft. So there's it's just like I I I'm very proud that Head with Wings attracts the people, the collaborators that it does, and that they go on to do great things. That's yeah, really really thrilled that we get to work with people of that caliber. Like it's frankly it's insane.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've said this so much in recent interviews, and I don't think it ever gets said enough. It's not just the people that are in the band; it's the people that work with the band that can help so much in what's going on. I mean, obviously, it takes a lot of work and dedication and talent to be able to write the music, write the lyrics, everything that goes along with it. But if you don't have the right people on the production side, you don't have the right people doing videos, you don't have the right people, a label or PR or whatever the case is, something can fall short and not reach the full potential. So when you work with the right people, you continue to work with the right people, or you go out and find the right people, it just elevates the band more than if you just had to do everything completely DIY.
Yep, for sure. We so just to backtrack a little bit on to riff on some of your points about the Galaxy video. So we hired Tom Flynn uh, from Long Island, and he is just a veteran filmmaker, specializes in music videos. You know, some of the biggest ones he's done are like some Lamb of God videos. You know, so he's done some really cool shit. We reached out to him after having spent like a month and a half writing our own script to the video. So we figured, okay, it's a story. It was the album story was my story, but then the lyrics led to probing the lyrics with a writing team, like in a writer's room for a month and a half. That led to uh, all these different interpretations of what the Galaxy video could be. So, like you say, that video raises a lot of questions, but it tackles so many themes that you would think like, are these just themes from this song or are they album themes? Well, some of them are album themes, but we wanted to pick not only arguably the catchiest song to do if we had to do one video or the budget for one video, which one would it be? That one, because it's probably the catchiest song. It has the most relatable themes to not just to people in general, but to the rest of the record too. It's almost like it forks out into the dark and the light on the record. And a lot of these light moments, or what could be perceived as happy moments on the record, I think are more ironic than anything, because there's no like happiness on this record is like earned. It's not just given. You know, it's not like, and it's taken away too. So it's not like it's only there for a moment in time, and then it's moving on to the reality of things, which is a much darker picture, as you pointed out too. So yeah, I think about your point about the collaborators and working on the video and what the video had to offer. Um, since we were so tied to my story, it only made sense that we would be the ones to write the script, and we had never done that before, and it was terrifying and challenging and very rewarding. And our roundtable was essentially myself, Brandon Cousineau, Joe Elliott, our bassist that came back, and Victor Mace, who is like an old, hilarious dude, witty dude, uh, in and around our friend group since Joe was a kid, and I've known him since like middle school era. So we go way back. Normally we don't bring people into the band. I don't know, what am I trying to say? Like like into our nucleus, like unless like we like to just operate in our own vacuum. So if we bring someone in, it has to be for good reason. And they're usually vetted. But we knew that there's this element to Galaxy where it's a little bit quirky and a little bit off and tongue in cheek at times. So having a little bit of that hilarious external influence by our friend Victor made a lot of sense, to have him in there for the majority of those writing sessions, to get, and having people that, because of the content of the track, right, it has to do with streaming and social media obsession and parasocial relationships and all of that. Having people that are on TikTok, um, glued to social media, paying attention to internet trends, knowing what's blowing up online and what's going viral. We needed like a little bit of that uh influence outside of what I know in my whole experience with uh gaming and even working with influencers, let's say. So anyway, that's a long story to say we're proud of the writing team. We thought maybe we would have done the video ourselves at a point, but once the script got like onto its like sixth or seventh draft, we were like, okay, now we know we really need a filmmaker. We can't shoot this ourselves. And that's when I reached out to Tom, and he very graciously was willing to take on the video. And
Hey, once again, I'm sorry about that. I completely lost track because I was so engaged with the conversation that I forgot about the countdown that happens and everything.
No worries. Nope. I haven't gotten up. I'm still here. It's like nothing ever happened.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, again, just like talking about the collaborations and everything and being able to work everything out. I just love the way everything has turned out because, like, you have such a great video that's going to be coming out. You have a great album that's going to be coming out. And after all of this, what's the plans going forward for the band?
Yeah, um so as you say, October 6th Galaxy video, October 20th Without Intervention release. Um Next gig in New England oriented, right? So we're in Connecticut. So next gig here in Connecticut will be November 21st at Space Ballroom, Camden, Connecticut, and I'm bringing out uh, Randy Mixstein from Porcupine Tree and Mixstein and Miniman fame, and also Toby Driver as Alora Crucible from KO Dot fame. And I mean, I could go on and on about how surreal it is to even be playing a gig with like this lineup. It's just too freaking cool. Um, was a huge KO Dot fan in college and in my formative musical years. Obviously, I've known about Randy well before he was with Porcupine Tree, and that dude is very inspirational. Um, and then after that, beyond for 2024, we're just going to be trying to do just some regional touring stints in support of the record as we're basically doing the pre-production of the next one.
Oh, that is just so cool. And yeah, that specific show that's coming up, I mean, that is such a killer lineup. And I am such a diehard Toby Driver fan from Modeling of the Will to KO Dot to
Yeah,
Vara and all of the projects that he's been a part of in some way, shape, or form. The fact that he's working with Head with Wings for the show is just incredible.
yeah, and he's a Connecticut guy as well. And strangely enough, his hometown is where I currently live now. So
Oh
I mean, it's
wow.
just fitting in a way. Like most artists that dream of more than what Connecticut can offer, they go on to what they hope to be greener pastures, right? And uh, states and cities and states that are more entrenched in the music business, let's say, or launching a band. But really cool to get him back here playing like a hometown oriented or home state oriented gig. He's just a great guy.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, I mean, just it's so great to see all the people that you get to work with. Such great names, either ones that you've been following for years or ones that you just found randomly and became friends with. And I'm so happy I got to be one of those people that discovered the band and have been able to promote you guys in so many different ways, from the album reviews to naming my show Something Gives, being able to cover mental health to just being able to catch up here again. I mean, whether we talk online, whether we're able to do interviews, it's always great to be able to talk to you and see all the cool stuff that's been going on. And of course, I've been there through a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and it's great to see that you guys going on a rise right now. And I hope that rise doesn't stop because you absolutely deserve all the credit that you've been getting so far and everything that is sure to come because of this album, the future shows, and everything else that'll happen in the future.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thank you. Happy that to be on your journey too. And I actually did check out. I had listened to the run of Something Gives like back when it came out, and actually just last night, I did go and listen to episode one again. And I know it's not something you probably want to ruminate on, right? Because it was probably very like cathartic to like get that off your chest. But there's like a very, even though it's like dark shit you're talking about, there's a very calming quality to the delivery of it, and it almost can act as like ASMR in a way, which is a
You are
little
not the first person to say that.
okay. Maybe it's just the way that you handle the mic in certain aspects of your storytelling, right? Not so much like your interview voice can be a little bit louder and more direct, but when you're telling a story, it's a bit different. It's like more calming. And but so aside from that, everyone definitely go check out as many interviews, as many of Josh's heavy debriefings interviews as you possibly can. Check out his prior series like Something Gives, pretty much anything on his YouTube channel. Go check it out. This dude has been going at it for I don't know how many years. That this is the 901st interview,
Yes, it
right?
is. Yeah,
So
and I
that's
really wanted
incredible.
this to be number 900, but another one just crept in uh, this week. But I'm so glad I was able to
Hey,
catch you
it's
in for
okay.
the last 100 before we hit 1,000.
I don't even know how you get them all booked and scheduled in, but yeah, just take it as you can. And I mean, whatever number I am is fine with me. Um, but yeah, just thank you for everything over the last 5 years, and I just hope you continue to just pop off for yourself too.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've been through so many different things when it comes to like being in cover bands, original bands, talking to bands, now doing everything that I do through YouTube and the podcast and everything that I'm doing. And I'm so happy to be in a position where I can talk about the bands freely that I care about, not doing clickbait stuff, not doing anything to throw in dirty laundry. I just want to promote good music. And the fact I've been able to do that for now 901 interviews and counting and getting to have you for a couple of those now and so many more in the future. I really, really hope so. I can't wait to be able to talk again with the next stuff that'll come in due time. But it's always a pleasure to be able to talk to you and be able to get your insight into Head with Wings and just be able to have more of an appreciation for the band every time that I talk to you than I had before.
Thank you. Yeah, the story continues to grow. We don't dwell on the same shit all the time. So we're trying to stay engaged ourselves, right? So the ideas are always changing. We're trying to go in new directions. We didn't want we wanted this record to be the opposite of From Worry to Shame, even though it's tied to it, just a totally different approach. And I guess lastly, before, because I know we have to get going here, but just to do a quick little band plug, I'm wearing my buddy's shirt, Appear Unbound.
Oh, yes.
So my buddy Andrew Stout's band, definitely check them out. Worked with them a few years ago. Um, they they're bound to have some killer new shit coming out next year. And since we spent all the time talking about uh, my stuff, my buddies in Earthside, they have, not that they need my promotional help, right? But they do have a new record coming out. I think it's the 17th of November. Is that, do
I
you have that
think so.
date?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
that
yeah.
sounds
So
right.
check that out too. And I know my buddies in Mile Marker Zero have one coming out. I think in quarter 1 next year. So be on the lookout for all this new music. Hopefully, there's new Head with Wings music next year too. Uh, maybe in the form of like a longer campaign. This one for Without Intervention is very condensed. Just we're really just focusing on one focus track, getting that video out there, and trying to capitalize on the record coming out in a closer proximity than everyone forgetting it like 5 months from now. So we're gonna see how that goes. But maybe next year there'd be more like a stream of music coming out.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'll be here to be able to help promote that to the best of my ability. I can't wait to check out all those albums that you mentioned. And again, the brand new album, Without Intervention, I love this album. It's easily going to be one of my favorite albums of the year when I do my top 100 at the end of the year. Always an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you. And despite all the circumstances of today and Zoom cutting off and everything, I'm so happy we were able to do this interview, be able to talk about Head with Wings, and just being able to catch up again.
Yeah, pleasure. I know I every once in a while I reach out to you and I try to get you to play some video games with me. So maybe we'll make that happen this time around.